Good evening, everyone. Namaste. A very warm welcome to everyone. On behalf of Gurujal, a water security and nature-based solution-focused organization with the mission to make India water secure, in collaboration with W4W Foundation, which is a think tank instituted as a citizens collective, we welcome you to another session of Wednesdays for Water. Today's conversation is on the economic valuation of natural resources. In the last couple of series, we have discussed about the science, the application, and about the policies behind the nature-based solution, which can come together and promote the entire agenda. But now, in today's session, we'll be talking about the economic valuation to understand a foundation behind the financing of the ecosystem services and various other aspects related with the nature-based solutions. Economic valuation of natural resources is a critical component of understanding the true worth of the ecosystems that sustain life on Earth. As we face increasing environmental challenges, recognizing the economic value of natural resources such as forests, wetland, rivers, and biodiversity becomes essential for informed decision-making. This process helps quantify the benefits that the ecosystems provide, including water purification, climate regulation, and the food production, which are often overlooked in the traditional economic models. In the context of nature-based solutions, also called the NBS, economic valuation provides a framework to integrate environmental considerations into policies and development plans by assessing monetary value to services provided by the natural ecosystems. It becomes easier to justify investments in conservation and restoration efforts. This ensures the sustainability of these resources and promotes their role in enhancing human well-being and mitigating climate change. The NBS Talk series will delve into the methodologies and challenges associated with the economic valuation of natural resources. The experts will explore how these valuations can influence policy, promote sustainable practices, and drive economic growth while preserving the only planet that we have and its natural capital. This session is vital for anyone interested in the intersections of economics, environment, and sustainable development. The objective for Wednesdays for Water is to engage in conversations with water experts, grassroots practitioners, policymakers, and you to explore the complex intertwined issues associated with water in the policy in the possible solutions. The conversations and the foundation has expanded since then to have more activities like Friday Waters and Monday Munchings with Women for Water, besides organizing water workshops, water talks, and water walks, seminars, special courses, and conferences, panels to continue the water conversations in various possible ways. Please visit the website to learn more and view the prior sessions about it. My name is Shubhi, and I am the moderator and the host for the session on behalf of Gurujal, which is, as I mentioned earlier, a water security focused organization. And today in our session, like I mentioned, we'll be exploring the economic valuation of natural resources. To make the conversations of the day very, very insightful, we have an expert, Dr. Rupa Manjari Sinha Roy, as a speaker, and Shalu Chauhan as the discussant. Shalu is also my colleague at Gurujal. I'm going to introduce my speaker for the day. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. Dr. Rupa Manjari Sinha Roy is an associate professor of economics and public area of Management Development Institute, or the MDI, in Gurgaon. She has over 20 years of teaching and research experience. She has been working in the areas of environmental economics, economics, development economics, CSR, and sustainability, besides macroeconomic policies. Her PhD was on aspects of international trade and environment. Ma'am has authored and co-authored articles in reputed national, international journals and chapters in the books, along with 2 books with reputed publishers, entitled CSR Practices in India and Responsible Leadership in Uncertain Times. She has been training corporates on topics of sustainable strategies, ESG, climate change, transition, and green accounting. This includes the economic valuation techniques. She runs an elective course along with her colleague at MDI on environmental management and green accounting. She has undertaken many research consulting projects with government department, corporate, and NGOs. I've personally had an opportunity to work very closely with ma'am on one of the studies that we are doing together. I welcome you, ma'am, again, and request you to please walk us into learning more about the economic valuation of natural resources.
Thank you so much, Shubhi, and I really thank you for this opportunity to present about the economic valuation of ecosystem services, as well as some parts of our study together that we had done, MDI Gurjal study on economic valuation of biodiversity parks. So I would just like to share my PPT. It's visible to all of you.
Yes, ma'am, very clearly. You might want to put it on the slideshow mode. Thank you. I think it's perfectly fine.
So this topic actually is something that motivated me to take it further in terms of research, because as a student of environmental economics, we had learned this topic on environmental valuation of benefits that we receive. So sometimes we are unable to really perceive the benefits, but the moment we do an economic valuation, we would be able to understand from some numbers, right? And a number is something which is more visible to us than just talking about abstract things like clean air is something which is important for us, or clean air will have some benefits, clean water would have some benefits. So therefore, economic valuation, the study motivates me to go into the depth of the understanding of various technologies or various methodologies associated with economic valuation. So what exactly is the requirement of economic valuation of environmental benefits or any kind of natural resources, economic valuation of natural resources? So to create awareness of the benefits and impact of natural resource-based projects, because most of the times we are aware that yes, clean air or clean water would give us benefits, but the awareness is not there in terms of to what extent the benefits and impact can be in our lives, right? For example, in the context of climate change or in the context of global warming, we know that these problems will lead to ultimately some kind of disasters, right? So to avoid that, we also need to understand why are these projects important. Now, this question of why can be only understood if we are able to value them, value the benefits, and look into in terms of number and impact of natural resource based projects, right? So to understand the benefits to conserve natural resources and how existing cities like Delhi NCR region can be better off with biodiversity based projects, that some of these pollution and water related issues can be prevented. If we understand the benefits, these problems can be prevented. Now, to understand the value of water rejuvenation and water recycling projects, uh, and how it can be helpful for the entire community and society at large. And there are also economic benefits to the community through ecotourism. If this let's say when we are thinking in terms of economic valuation of biodiversity park, we all know that we have some benefits in terms of ecotourism. So instead of, providing the land of the forest land or any kind of land to real estate developers, we can also think of developing ecotourism and other such activities. And for that purpose, it is absolutely important to understand the economic benefits. Now, the context for various stakeholders. For example, from academic point of view, these are common methodologies for any environmental or natural resource-based project appraisals. So as academician or as an environmental economist, one needs to really look at from the point of view of project appraisal. Now, both researchers and consultants use these techniques widely for project appraisal and also impact analysis study. So most of the times, government schemes and government projects, we need to evaluate. If we know the understanding of economic valuation, we would be able to really understand the impact of these schemes, the government schemes, right? Now, valuation techniques provide basis of funding the projects, convincing banks, financial institutes, organizations which provide CSR funds and grants from government and other multilateral organizations. Now, another interesting thing is that sometimes we are able to understand the tangible value. For example, what amount of water we are getting, what amount of clean water we are getting. These are very tangible. However, there can be some intangible benefits related to the fact that we are able to understand it's abstract, but probably we are unable to measure, right? For example, there may be some health related issues, or there may be some environmental impacts in terms of greater disaster management in future. So in those terms, we see that intangible benefits are absolutely also important to measure. So a tangible value for intangible benefits also attract policymakers and organizations to get convinced about projects on natural resources. Now, there are three important aspects or features of natural resources or environmental resources. For example, irreversibility. Once natural resources are damaged, it is very difficult to reverse the natural process of restoration of natural resources or any kind of environmental goods. There is also a lot of uncertainty in terms of environmental resources or natural resources, because probably a flood or a drought can destroy a particular natural habitat. So therefore, there is a lot of uncertainty as well. And this kind of resources are very unique because it has got a future value. It has got an existence value. And that is how we see that these three particular features are very important, and the valuation techniques are also quite different for environmental resources and natural resources. Now, if you ask me, we see that the economic values of environmental resources can be actually divided into few heads. I'll just a moment. Yeah. So if you see user value. Now, user value means which the actual use of the environmental good is derived from the natural resource. So actual current use of or plus the future potential use gives you the user value. So as a user of, let's say, some kind of water related project, or let's say some kind of biodiversity park related project, if I'm a visitor of biodiversity park, I'm using the biodiversity park, and therefore I'm deriving those user value. And it can also have some future user value if I'm leaving the biodiversity area for my future generation as well as for my use in future. So this is what I mean by user value. But let's say I'm a resident near the biodiversity park, and I'm not really directly using the biodiversity park. So I do have a value because living near the biodiversity park, I would get clean air, and that would really improve my health condition, or I would have a better health than people living far away from the biodiversity park. So that is basically called non-user value, right? So we do have a non-user value. We also have a user value. And we also have a future potential use value, which is also known as option value. Non-user value is coming out of the uniqueness. So this is where we were talking about environmental resource as a unique resource, which has got an existence value. That means just the particular biodiversity part exists, and that is how we see there is some kind of non-user value or existence value. uh, Probably we may not stay near any kind of biodiversity region, but still that has got a value for me if I'm not staying near it. How? Because any kind of biodiversity projects or any kind of natural resource project, like any kind of water project, will lead to a scenario where we would be able to prevent the climate change problems and global warming problems. So in a way, I'm indirectly getting benefit out of it, even if I'm not using it. So that's where the existence value come into play. So total economic value becomes equal to user value plus option value plus existence value. User value can be both direct use value as well as indirect use value. Now, if you look at the option value is derived out of three possibilities: leaving open the options for one's future use, that means future potential use by the same person or same individuals; leaving open for next generation's use, that means it is the bequest value; and also leaving open for others' use, which is basically the vicarious value. So if you think in terms of the economic valuation techniques, there can be two broad categories: objective standard based valuation, where we are able to capture all the tangible benefits and costs, like how many people are benefited, how many what is the amount of water that had got rejuvenated in a water project, then what is the amount of oxygen that is released in a kind of biodiversity project, etc., etc. So these are something that we are able to see from the tangible benefits. But there are also some kind of subjective preference based valuation as well. And here we have use of shadow price, that is measured through willingness to pay in case there is a positive externality benefit, in the sense that a particular project that will lead to less pollution will create positive externality for the community across. It may be a local community, it may be also a global community if we think in terms of global warming or carbon emissions reduction. So uh, what is the willingness to pay for such kind of projects? So that will tell us the shadow value of the environmental benefits we receive from such projects, right? Number one. Number two, willingness to accept in case there is a negative externality during floods and other disasters. In this case, what we see is that, um, let's say that here, environmental pollution, for example, is creating negative externality, right? And that may lead to, let's say, some kind of flood or some kind of disaster. And after, if there is flood or disaster, what is the willingness to accept? That means that will tell us the cost of those projects, which will the value of the cost of those projects which will prevent such disasters. Also, there are certain more indirect ways of methods of valuation. So again, valuation techniques can be divided into indirect methods and direct methods. So averting behavior approach, weak complementarity approach, and hedonistic pricing principle are the three indirect methods. Now, if I go to the averting behavior approach, we see that it uses method by which substitutes are used for valuation, right? For example, cost of increase in pollution will be equivalent to that of cost of increase in treatment, right? So what is the cost of increase in treatment? That is exactly how we can measure the cost of increase in pollution. Similarly, value of reduction in pollution is equal to savings in cost of treatment. So we did a project for Delhi Metro to see the valuation of their, carbon credits. And for carbon credits, they have used regenerative braking system that had saved a lot of energy, right? So saving in the cost of treatment means how they were able to avoid energy consumption. So it's not really the actual energy consumed by them, but how with the help of this technology of regenerative braking system, they were able to avoid the potential consumption of savings. So that is basically how we look at value of reduction in pollution equal to the savings in the cost of treatment, or cost of, savings in the cost of energy, etc., etc. So this kind of evaluation technique is called averting cost behavior. Just a moment, yeah. Now, weak complementarity approach. This is where we are talking about, we are using complementary goods for environmental valuation, but it is often weak in nature, but it is a good measure also in such a way. So a park will be visited more often if the lake is kept clean and pollution free. So a change in environmental quality in terms of water quality improvement is valued by looking at its effect on the increased cost of visiting this park. So what is the cost of visiting this park? Has it gone up? If it has gone up, that means the environmental valuation of the park has really gone up. And then there is hedonistic pricing principle, like to value environmental disamenities in cities of, or risks of death at war, or to value recreation sites through travel cost, or hedonic price of a house may be decomposed into several environmental attributes. And then we can look into the marginal price of each attribute. So in this case, what we are saying is like property price increase may be due to increase in several environmental attributes, right? And that is why property price may often be substituted for hedonic price, but it's not the full property price, maybe a partial, partial aspect of the property price that can be increased due to environmental changes. So that for that, we need to do some kind of econometric analysis of how this change can be captured. Then we do have contingent valuation method, and this is a direct method approach. Like we do a survey of willingness to pay, or willingness to receive, or willingness to accept. And through direct questioning, we would be able to understand the willingness to pay. So first we will look into the questions of what are the benefits they get from an environmental resource. So often, there are studies of heritage buildings, then there are studies of historical parks through this kind of contingent valuation method. The same method can be used for valuing environmental resource. That what is the willingness to pay for getting these benefits. And we can provide them with some kind of method of pricing or paying or accepting. And we can also give them a range of values between which the respondent chooses his own or his own. Now, this particular value is the one which a researcher has to think of, that what could be the base value, or what could be the range of values which probably the people are willing to pay for an environmental resource. And probably this can be thought from the point of view of the fact that what is the gain, what is the benefit that one can really get from such environmental resource, right? And accordingly, one can set the range of values. I will tell you about the range of values that we have used for this purpose, because this particular valuation method was used in our study as well. So now we come to the MDI Gurujal study on economic valuation of biodiversity parks, where we have used the cost benefit approach and for economic valuation, and ultimately the NPV method. However, we have studied the particular ecosystem services of biodiversity park proposed biodiversity park at Damdama Lake. And for that, we have tried to figure out the other existing biodiversity park, what are the benefits they are getting, what are the, demand side aspects. So we did a survey on that. And for the supply side, the amount of carbon sequestration that can be done, or the amount of water rejuvenation that can be done, all these data were collected by Gurujal. And accordingly, a measurement of an economic valuation, a monetary value was provided by the study to see the supply side, aspects of ecosystem services of the park. So the data for the study for measuring WTP, we had collected data from residents and visitors survey, including residents around Aravalli Urban Biodiversity Park of Delhi and residents of 3 villages of Damdama forest areas having similar geographical and climatic conditions. More or less, they are similar because they are all located in Delhi NCR region. And visitors survey of Urban Aravalli Biodiversity Park of Gurugram and visitors survey of Damdama Lake area have been also conducted. Since it's a very small study and that too of only a few months, we could not elaborate the study to other biodiversity parks beyond Delhi NCR region. So the secondary data that were used in the study for social cost benefit approach was the following. Secondary data of land value to use property price as a hedonic valuation method. So we looked into the circle rates and we looked into the, each district of, not the district, but the circle rates of a particular village or, the particular area. Like Damdama has got 3 villages. So we looked into the property price there. Plus, we also looked into what is the property price, beyond these 3 villages. Like probably we had looked into the Batshapur village as well, which is away from the Damdama, lake villages, to compare the property values that due to the forest area, whether the property value is higher there and lower in Batshapur. So that kind of difference we tried to look into. And then we also took the secondary data on carbon sequestration and carbon prices in India. Carbon sequestration data was provided by Gurujal itself, and carbon prices in India we could get from a website called, I think, Green World or so. I have it in my report. I would be able to share later on. I just don't remember the site name, but they provide carbon prices in India along with other countries as well. And secondary data of population of districts around biodiversity park, so that the willingness to pay whatever we had calculated could be projected for the as per the census 2011. So this particular population, we did not use just the census data of 2011 because we tried to look into the valuation for 30 years from now, from 2024. So because census 2021 didn't come up, but census 2011 had projected population data till 2032. So we took the projected population data of till 2032 of the different districts and regions, and then we tried to calculate the projected population also based on the kind of 2011 census what they have used till I think 2055 or so, the 30-year range that we had calculated. And then visitor data for alternative parks were also there. And because we had thought that this project would at least last for 30 years, that's the minimum. It can be even more, because if we are able to conserve biodiversity park and maintain it for 30 years and have a ecotourism project, probably that will definitely last for 30 years. So that is the reason why we took 30 years. And then we had visitor data for alternative parks as well. Like, we had used the visitor data and tried to project the visitor data, the proposed visitor data for Damdama Lake, using the data for zoological garden provided by Terry study in Delhi, right? So water conservation data and water prices were also used. Water conservation data was again collected by Gurujal, and water prices were simply taken from the Delhi Jal Board's, price data, water price data. Then also we had seen oxygen released in the air. That data was again calculated by, that data was rather measured by Gurujal, and price of air purifier was taken to be the hedonic price or the alternative price to value the oxygen released in the air. So therefore, the research methodology has got both demand side perspective using all stakeholders' perceived benefits and benefits based on secondary data, as well as supply side perspective, where we are using the valuation of all the ecosystem services, including carbon sequestration, air purification, water conservation, and wildlife conservation. However, this wildlife conservation was completely a measurement done by Gurujal, and therefore probably Shubhi can tell us more about how they have measured this wildlife conservation. That we will talk about later when we discuss about it. And then we use survey method. Survey method was used to collect data from the various stakeholders in the field visits. And here we had various kind of questions like what are the benefits they could perceive, and what are the kind of, and how do they rate these benefits. And accordingly, we did a factor analysis also to understand which are the determinants for them to visit the park or to stay near the biodiversity park. And we also looked at partial hedonic pricing, marketing prices, and contingent valuation methods to capture willingness to pay. And ultimately, we did a social cost benefit analysis with a social discounting rate here at the rate of 5.5%, which is a very, very standardized rate used in Indian studies of social projects. So from demand side perspective, we did see direct use value, income generation from employment and self-employment. We really looked into the market price method and primary survey here. And also direct use value, where we looked into the profit from ecotourism park contingent valuation method for estimating entry fee and also estimating operational costs as well. Though operational cost data we did have ourselves, so we didn't really need to look at from the point of view of the stakeholders, but we did had that question for them. For example, if there are income earners in an eco-tourism park, like there may be rickshaw pullers, there may be some souvenir sellers, there may be some joy rides. So what are the income they have and what are the cost? Even the food stalls, for example. So what is the operational cost of running a food stall? So that kind of data also we tried to collect. However, we didn't get much on that operational cost. So we relied on the cost that we had estimated ourselves. So indirect use value, here we actually tried to look into the income generation based on forest resources. And here we try to look into, let's say, for example, honey. Honey cultivation is one such, kind of activity where many of the, people can collect honey and sell it in the market. So that's an income generation on forest resources. Then also, for example, firewood can be another such example, which we had seen in case of Jim Corbett, study that we had referred to. And there are many such more indirect use value study that we looked into from other, studies as well. So we looked into residents' environmental, cultural, and recreational benefits, non-use value. And we also said that this is basically something which is intangible benefits, which they were unable to, put numbers of what is the benefit, and that's the reason why we went for the contingent valuation method. Similarly, visitors, environmental, cultural, and recreational benefits, we again took this from the indirect use value method, and it's basically the contingent valuation method for using the WTP approach, that is willingness to pay approach, and we just directly asked them about their range that they would like to select. We gave them a range of prices and they had selected from there. And then we had calculated the weighted average of that, the WTP, and looked into the WTP. I'll come to the exact number of the WTP also. We also looked into the health cost savings. We had put in a question there, and they said that they were able to save this much of health costs. So again, we had given some range over there, and they had put a tick mark on understanding the non-tangible non-use value, which is basically the health cost savings. Value of land of the three villages as an opportunity cost of alternate use. So government fixed prices. We have used partial hedonic pricing, which we have talked about it earlier also, and difference in land value as realization of indirect property benefits from ecotourism. So this is how we are using the hedonic pricing. So what is the benefit from ecotourism? Indirect benefit of environment from ecotourism is basically measured from in property benefits, right? And it is based on the difference in the land value as realized. So that's the reason why we have taken Badshapur village also, and we had also taken the valuation of the land value of the three villages as well. And for supply of ecosystem services, here we have completely based out of the market price method, as we have said earlier. So what we figured out was the perceived benefits of residents and visitors were four major benefits of residents and visitors. And this consists of both rural residents and urban residents. Here we figured out aesthetic values, cultural and historical values, health, environmental benefits in terms of clean air and water, etc. So these are the perceived benefits. Now, scopes of income and livelihood, we could figure out that they had a dream of ecotourism, particularly the villages around Damdama Lake. And they said that we would be benefited because we could get a lot of, livelihood generation through ecotourism. For example, as I was mentioning, a rickshaw puller or a food stall owner or a souvenir seller or simply a boat ride in the Damdama Lake can, have a lot of ecotourism related activities. So that they were banking on. Secondly, they were also saying that they can actually have more income through horticultural activities based on forest resources. And then third was souvenir shops based on cultural heritage of the forests or biodiversity parks. Like this was really the case we had seen in case of Aravali Biodiversity Park in Gurugram. Sometimes they also have, some kind of ecotourism lessons in the park itself. For example, there are groups who come to the parks and they provide ecological sessions, which is going to benefit biodiversity walks, which is going to benefit people. So that kind of, services can also lead to some income generation. Tea and food stalls, recreation facilities. So recreation facilities are there in both the cases of Aravali Biodiversity Park in Gurugram, as well as there is an amphitheater there, and they can come over with groups and can perform something which is based to make people aware of the environmental resources. What are the benefits of the environmental resources? So income generation from there also can happen. So what we figured out was using weighted, WTP, we could figure out that residents derived environmental benefit worth rupees 3598 and visitors derived environmental benefit worth rupees 1925 yearly. So we had given there the option like what should be your you are visiting for a visitor it was a monthly that we had put in the range, and then we had multiplied that by 12 later on. But for residents, it was a yearly kind of data that we had collected, and we had put in some range, whether it's below 1,000 or below 5,000 and things like that. Interestingly, in Delhi, what we could find that there were two kinds of areas. One was extremely people who resided near the Aravalli Biodiversity Park are extremely rich people, or maybe there is a slum area also where we also had done the survey, and there we figured out that they were more willing to pay for conserving the biodiversity part, because they said that we derive a lot of benefit, particularly health related benefit out of this particular biodiversity part. So accordingly, they had put in a very high WTP there. And also we had seen healthcare costs for residents, which are below rupees 1,000 monthly. And for rural residents, this was below rupees 500 monthly who stay near the park. Urban residents also feel the property value has increased due to presence of biodiversity parks. Of course, we did not use the WTP method for rural area because, we did a pilot in
Ma'am,
Manipani.
sorry. It's
Yeah,
a very intriguing discussion, but I'm requesting you to wrap up in another 2-3 minutes
yeah,
so that we
yeah.
have time for our questions.
Yes. I'll just wrap up. So basically, what we figured out was this way we had done the survey, and then we calculated the present value and got a figure of total benefit. And here we had taken some parts of the Gurugram district and also some parts of South Delhi district. So Gurugram district, South Delhi district, and Faridabad district, which could actually get the benefit. And accordingly, we calculated we extrapolated the WTP, the value, and tried to project it for the entire population. Then these are carbon sequestration, water reservation, conservation, and air purification, wildlife conservation data. And the hedonic market principle was used for the purpose. Again, that is market price mainly here. We had just taken, it's not really hedonic because we are not using some other resource here, but we are using opportunity cost. So it's rather the market price that we have used. For example, if there is 6,536 metric tons in 15 years, so we made a projection for 30 years. So for each of these 30-year projection, we tried to look into the 2020 price as well, and 2030 price and 2050 price for various years. And then we also looked into the water conservation here, as I had mentioned earlier. So this is the way we had calculated the NPV ultimately. So from both, the NPV was then calculated deducting the capex of the project to be almost 700 million, and then we tried to look into the aspect of the benefit that we have from the demand perspective. It is much higher than that of the supply perspective, and then we thought that we can think of a social surplus also from the study. So there are other studies related to such kind of economic valuation. This is just one study, and there is also another study which is going on pond wastewater rejuvenation. So that is also we are doing. But there are other studies in the domain of this particular field, which are not by us, but from other studies. So these are some of the studies that were taken place. And these are some of the references I have used for my presentation, as well as also for the study here for secondary literature. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think there's such a hard work that you did to lead this study. in its amazing outcomes. And I'm sure like every important policy needs such evidential based studies where somebody can see the value of in natural resource conservation, etc. We, as a matter of fact, we did not have a lot of economic valuation studies in the Asian context. The more you find in the European and the American context, but they were missing. So this is a congratulations to you for leading the way on doing the study. Thank you so much. I think I'm just quickly going to introduce our discussant for the day. Shalu Chauhan. Ms. Shalu Chauhan is a young environment enthusiast, currently working as an assistant manager focusing on strategic communications and project management. She holds MSc in biotechnology from Delhi Technical University, where she developed expertise in biofuels and environment sustainability. Shalu's diverse experience includes roles in liaising with key stakeholders, supporting the fundraising efforts, and optimizing operations. At Gurujal, she manages the CEO's office, ensuring seamless communication and execution of initiatives. With a passion for environmental challenges and a strong background in research, Shalu is committed to making meaningful impact on sustainable development and organizational growth. I request Shalu to ask the questions, curious questions that we had from ma'am for the day, and also take up a few questions from our participants. Thank you so much, Shalu. Over to you.
Thank you. For this insightful presentation on the
Shalu, I'm unable to hear you. Can you be a little bit louder?
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for this insightful presentation on the economic valuation of natural resources. Your detailed analysis highlighted the critical need for the valuing environmental benefit, the methodologies involved, and the significant impact that such valuation have on the policy making, project funding, and the community movement. This context provided for the various stakeholders from researcher to policymaker was very exciting. The case study that you have showcased, including the MDI project study, offered a practical insight into the application of this valuation method. This has given us the comprehensive understanding of how economic valuation can guide sustainable development. But I have few questions from this slide. My first question is, could you discuss the significance of the findings from the MDI filter study on the economic transition of the biodiversity part, particularly the role of ecosystem services in determining cost, demand, and the supply side?
Yeah. So basically, I would say that this particular valuation of ecosystem services can help in enhancing more of such projects, which are like, for example, water restoration projects or pond wastewater management projects, or let's say any kind of environmental project, more of biodiversity projects, ecotourism projects, because we really need such projects, right? Unless and until we understand the benefits of such projects in terms of some numbers, we would not be able to convince anybody to fund such projects. So it's very important that one needs to do such valuation, and so that we can think in terms of more such projects, because we all are living in Delhi NCR region, and we know the kind of pollution that we face, particularly during those seasons of from October to November, October to December every year. So how can we really, maintain and enhance biodiversity parks? How can we really translate the biodiversity parks into having more carbon sequestration and oxygen releases so that we have less pollution? Such projects need to be enhanced, and for that we also need to understand the demand side perspective of such projects as well as supply side, because it's not enough that we only look at demand side, but supply side, who is going to maintain, who is going to create that biodiversity park, who is going to who is going to incur the cost, how the cost is going to be funded. So there has to be some budget for all these projects. So from that perspective, economic valuation of such projects is absolutely needed, right?
Definitely. Ma'am, my second question is in the context of the study on the economical evaluation of biodiversity. What challenges were encountered in estimating the willingness to pay for the environmental benefit, and how were these challenges overcome
So
during your study?
initially, when we had, constructed the questionnaire, that was the time when we took a standardized questionnaire. We used the Terry study of National Zoological Garden to form our questionnaire. And we took some of the figures there. But then we realized that it is a biodiversity park, and this biodiversity park is much far stretched, and it has got a you know higher size, right? So it would be more beneficial, and therefore people would be probably willing to pay more than what we had seen in case of National Zoological Garden. So therefore we had to again rearrange the numbers which were given in the questionnaire, number one. Number two, we also tried to, see, we couldn't really get the WTP value for rural people, because we went to Mangarbani, and, when what happens with rural people, if they are staying in the near the forest, right from the beginning of their lives, they are so much used to the park that they don't feel the benefits unless you tell them that these are the benefits. So even when we had said that these are the benefits, now when we gave them numbers that would you like to pay for this, you don't have to pay, but we would like to know if you have got the opportunity to pay. But they have so many other difficulties in their lives. For example, they have economic problems, so most of them couldn't really understand the question of willingness to pay, and therefore we had to drop that question in the rural survey. We only could see what are the benefits they had received from the forest. We really couldn't catch up with the question of WTP there. So that was a limitation of the study, you can say, right?
Yeah.
So these are some of the challenges that we had overcome. And also, I think Shubi can say more about from the perspective of how they collected the data, how difficult it was to collect the data for carbon sequestration and then oxygen release and other such environmental ecosystem services, right? So definitely there were challenges in terms of sometimes they may have gone to the field, but couldn't really manage the collection of data and all that. Again, they had to repeat the experiments, etc., etc. Right? Yes.
No, ma'am, I will definitely do that, but I think I'm just going to leave the floor to you. There were definitely some challenges, some not lot of them. We did a combination of government data along with, collecting data from the ground, but because we had the community-based fellow working with us completely,
Right.
so we had some confidence from the communities, and that would enable us with a lot of effective data collection. But
Right.
I'm also requesting Shalu to please take up the question that we have in the chat box so that we can respond to sir.
Yeah, sure. Now this is the question from Mrs. Shashank. Like the biodiversity, well, how is the base value of biodiversity with access? And when biodiversity is enhanced, it is considered beneficial. But how was this added value quantified and incorporated in overall values?
So basically, what we have done, we had a current value of all these, sources as the basis point, and then we had projected for future that how it can add up. So we really did some sensitivity analysis as well, and also we tried to say that if this is the growth rate of carbon sequestration or or some other such kind of features, how it is going to add on to the base level carbon sequestration. So maybe there are some data which can be overestimated, but yes, we try to project the overestimation by not keeping a very very high estimation. We tried to look into the growth rate as conservative as possible, right? So we did two types of experiment, optimistic also and conservative also, and we tried to look into such kind of estimates. So when it is enhanced, it is good. How is the add-on value point placed? So add-on value point, you can say that I'm not sure what exactly you mean by the add-on value point, but probably what would be the future value of this particular project if there is an ecotourism park instead of anything else. So we did some experiment in terms of scenario analysis as well. However, I have not included that in my report because the scenario analysis had been done by Gurujal alone. I had really tried to look into from the perspective of 2024 data that we had collected, right? So that was the basis for me.
Thanks, ma'am. Thanks. I just want to have one point. See, I'm aware of certain spots in and around Gurgaon and NCR areas.
Right.
Now, Damdama Lake you have done. I'm very much aware of Sultanpur Lake. Have you generally gone around Sultanpur Lake and the features
No,
available in?
we were supposed to go, but for some reason we couldn't really go because we had a plan.
Suppose you have some basics for say a lake. You take a Damdama Lake or a Sultanpur Lake and say like for like you put values. So the environmentalists or the practitioners on the field will be able to say, okay, if you put greens over here, if you put more fish here, if you have less pollution here, things will improve and things like that. And and another point is, suppose you take up let's say one spot like Noida Biodiversity Park. You are aware of it?
Yes.
Okay, and then Yamuna Biodiversity Park.
Right.
You put like for like, and get some base value, and then say over a year what happens? Suppose something deteriorates here, something increases there, then the value and the proportionate increases in the points, the environmentalists, the practitioners will be able to appreciate better and do the remedials accordingly. I just want to be sure about that part. That's all.
I think I can touch in here, sir, just to share the insights of why particularly these specific sites were chosen. Of course, we had limitation of times and other logistical concerns apart from getting the permissions.
Permission was the main issue.
Permissions were the main issue. But then we also wanted, because we were not considering just Damdama Lake, but the entire eco restoration section which has been marked by the government for protection. So we were considering that, which was a combination, majority of the forest and lesser of lake in combination. So we were taking that as an ecosystem habitat. And then the another eco habitat that was considered was the Aravali Biodiversity Park, which has a legacy of 10 years of presence. Then third one was Mangarbani, because again, it is being worked on for quite a while. So we took up similar sort of areas, also saying that, Aravali to Aravali combination would be better. Why did we not go for Sultanpur? Because that's more in the wetland category. And here we were considering the eco restoration or the biodiversity park category. Here, we could have gone to Yamuna Biodiversity Park. That is definitely a good thing, but we did not get the permissions in time, so we did not proceed. Sorry, ma'am. I just thought I would respond.
No, I think absolutely.
Thanks a lot. I'm getting some clarity.
These are some of the challenges also.
Yeah.
I'm getting clarity. Thanks a lot. You have done a lot of good work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think Mansi ma'am has a quick question, ma'am.
Yes. Very quick question.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation, Rupa Manjari ji, and this is Mansi from W4W only. I have a question regarding something futuristic about it. Now that we are calculating the biological value, and I mean monetizing the biological value, which is aquatic lice and all, and also adding to the contingent valuation, which you are already talking about. Do you think we are moving ahead where we can actually bring them together, where we are also talking about blue credits? If these biodiversity parks are done, they can be transferred to some other kind of blue credits, which the developer can really capitalize in another way, like we have in building industry. So it's just a futuristic question. Over to you. Thank you.
Yes, I guess we can think of, but blue credit is a very new concept as far as the concept of water credit is concerned. But in terms of carbon credit, what I figured out was a fact that particularly I did that study of Delhi Metro, where I could see that they came up with something innovative. Then only they got the carbon credit. So that is something that we need to think of while developing a biodiversity park, or let's say a water project. For blue credit, we need to think of something innovative in the scenario of water rejuvenation projects or pond based water projects, something unique, right?
Some
Then
research is on
probably
the way.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Over to you, Shubhi. Over to you. Thanks a lot.
No, thank you for the wonderful question. I think the genesis of the study comes from that only, ma'am.
Yeah.
To understand, not saying blue credit, but the
Yes.
green credit, which India has already formally announced, and water is a huge
Right.
part in the segment.
Hmm.
So just understanding what it entails, and if one were to calculate what would be the genesis. So I think I reached out to Dr. Rupa Manjari for help, and she stepped in and did the amazing study. I'm happy to share that study also. We look forward to publishing it in a while. But yeah, that has been the genesis of study. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing the insights from the study. Thank you so much, Shalu, for coming up with these amazing questions and active participation from Dr. Seshadri and Mansi. So thank you so much, everyone. I think we've already
Thank you so
exceeded
much.
by 5
Thank you
minutes.
so much, everybody. I really enjoyed
Thank you.
the talk. Thank you.